Hey you guys, and welcome back to my channel. I'm really excited for today's video. It is going to be my first update for my Pan Those Eyeshadows series for 2022. If you're new to this series, it was created by Alexi, who I will have linked down below, and so many other creators do this project now. You can just search the hashtag Pan Those Eyeshadows and you will have so much palette panning / eyeshadow panning content to binge watch. It is one of my favorite type or style of videos to watch myself personally. So make sure you check out that hashtag. Make sure you check out Alexi's channel. Everybody kind of does this project different. I'm currently working on 6 separate eyeshadows at any given time. One of those palettes is one that I choose to cycle through each month from my palettes on their last 2 raw series. So I'll have that series linked down below. It's kind of like my year-long palette chopping block, and I choose a different palette from that series each month to also focus on in this project and potentially hit an eyeshadow pan in one of those palettes, which I didn't do this month, but I will be cycling out that palette. I actually don't have any eyeshadow pans within this project to share with you. I did hit 1 eyeshadow pan in the month of January, which I'll share after the introduction. So if you're interested in seeing my update for the Pan Those Eyeshadows, all of my progress from January, stay tuned. First, if you have yet to subscribe to my channel and you like project panning content, or you just like to chit chat about makeup, I would love for you to consider subscribing before moving on. And other than that, let's jump into the video. Okay, apologies for the hair. My bun is literally higher than my viewfinder right now. My bun is so big it's not even in frame, but I couldn't be bothered to do my hair. Like I said in the introduction, I do have 1 eyeshadow pan that I hit in the month of January. My goal this year will be to hit at least 22 eyeshadow pans in 2022, so I'll leave that goal tracker down below. And it's not necessarily eyeshadow pans within this project, it's just total eyeshadow pans hit throughout this year. The 1 pan that I hit this past month came from my Too Faced Pumpkin Spice palette, and it's not super exciting. It's the shade Whipped Cream right here. As you can tell, I obviously have a pan in that shadow. It's just an all over lid setting shade, and for me, I kind of just cycle through my eyeshadow palettes and grab palettes with a lid setting shade, work on that shade until I hit pan, and then I roll it out. And because I kind of do that already myself, I do have a rule in my specific Pan Those Eyeshadows project that if I roll in a lid setting shade or a black eyeshadow, I don't want to work on those types of shades. My only other rules are that I have 3 vetoes allowed throughout the year. I'm not going to exercise my right to veto anything today, and then I want to use an eyeshadow at least 15 times, or it has to be in my project for 3 months before I can roll it out. So I won't be rolling anything out today, with the exception of the palette that is from my palettes on their last 2 raw, and that palette was my Nabla Secret. So I personally choose the palette that I want to randomly generate a shade from, and then I randomly generate a shade at the end. But the 6th palette, or the palette from the palettes on their last 2 raw, is just an eyeshadow palette. I am going to rotate monthly. So when I rolled this in, I randomly generated the shade Romeo right here, and I did reach into this palette a total of 5 times in the month of January, but I think I only reached into Romeo specifically 2 times. You can obviously see there is some disruptance in the shade, and I will obviously post a picture from the beginning of January and where we are at now. I have also been focused on this shade right here, this brown shade. It's what I've been using in my brows. I have it in my brows today, and I've been using it just as an eyebrow powder, and I think I will still kind of keep this palette pulled in front and center to try and see if I can hit pan on this shade potentially by the end of February. We'll see, but I will be replacing this palette with a different palette from that series. I will also post a picture right here so that you guys can see what my color story was looking like for the last month. It was actually a very cohesive color story, but to me it screamed more fall than it did January / winter time. And I will continue to swatch. I'll swatch the shades on my arm. Okay, that is, no, we're gonna swatch them just on my hand. I don't know why I did that. So I will swatch the shades right here. I'll go grab a makeup wipe and wipe this off. But this was the shade out of the Nabla Secret palette. And then we'll just go in order from least used to most used. So the least used shadow from this series this past month came from my Pat McGrath Divine Rose Decadence 6-pan eyeshadow palette. And I didn't reach for this one at all, but I have a feeling I'll be reaching into this palette a lot for the month of February, because this just kind of screams Valentine's Day to me, and just like the month of February. The shade that I selected was the 6th shade right here, or sorry, 5th shade right there, and it is a really beautiful shade. I don't know why I did not reach for this at all. I was kind of just having fun with some of my other palettes. I was trying to focus on some of the palettes I pulled into my palettes on the last 2 Raw series, and I did only do my makeup 11 times in January, so there is that shade swatch right here. As you can tell, it's super beautiful. I definitely can see myself getting use out of this next month for sure. I will say though, I already have an eyeshadow pan in this palette, obviously right here, and the pans are really deep. It took me forever to hit that. I want to say like over maybe 35, close to 50 uses. So we'll see where I'm at with this shade right here when we get to about that 15 use mark, and whether or not I want to roll it out or continue to try and hit pan on it. Next up, I have a shade from the Trace Luce, the I Am eyeshadow palette, and I only reached for this shade one time. It is this shade right here. It is in the shade Grateful, and it's a really beautiful shimmery like teal blue sort of shade. I just kind of, as I'm swatching this, I kind of wore away the dip that I had, so I only used this one time. I used it as a liner, but it is a pretty loosely packed shade. It's super beautiful. Like, how beautiful is that? Damn. Swatched, I'm like, ooh, I should use that actually all over the lid rather than just a liner. So I had used that as a liner. It's a pretty loosely packed eyeshadow shade. Like, I feel like you can see there is a little bit of a dip in there. I do feel like I could hit pan on this within the 15 uses. I obviously have no idea how deep the pans are, but just based on like how loosely packed it was, I feel like I could hit pan rather quickly if I continued to use it as a liner. But I only reached for it one time this past month, so hopefully I can get a few more uses and we'll see more progress for the next update. I had 2 eyeshadow palettes that I reached for twice, the first one being the Alter Ego Canyon palette, and the shade that I was working on in this palette is the shade Desert Sun right here. I reached for this 2 separate times. I do really like this eyeshadow palette. I do have a pan already in this palette over here. I don't know how well you'll be able to see. It's in the shade Expanse. I had been using that as an eyebrow powder last year, I think, and was able to hit pan on it that way. I can't remember how long it took me to hit pan on it. There is Desert Sun swatched right there. It's a really beautiful matte, like warm orangish, warm brown orangish sort of matte brown shade. What am I trying to say here? I did create a really beautiful warm brown look the other day using the Dominique Cosmetics Latte palette, and I did reach into this shade while I created that look. This just isn't the type of shade I feel like I'm going to be reaching for this time of year, although it is a very, like, this palette is very wearable. Like, if I wanted to just reach into this palette to create a really quick work look, and this shade specifically I could use as like a one shadow and done look just in the crease. So I'm hoping maybe I could get even just like 3 uses in February. I would be happy. I'm going to be focused on a lot of my like pinks and mauves in February, but I'm hoping to get at least a little bit more use out of this palette next month. And then the other eyeshadow palette I reached for twice was this ColourPop quad. This is the Pisces in the Sky quad, and I randomly generated this shade right here, which is like the perfect super subtle one shadow and done shade, and that's how I reached for it this past month. There was one day I just put this in the crease. It looks like it could potentially be an all over lid setting shade, but it is a little bit too deep for me. But I just put this in the crease and then used the Laura Mercier Caviar stick in the shade Rose Quartz and put that all over the lid, and I loved the way that that turned out. I feel like ColourPop shades within like 20 uses, typically I can hit pan, although I feel like it's harder for me to hit pan on matte shades personally, unless it's like an all over lid setting shade or a liner shade. Like, I actually feel like I have very few matte shades that I actually use other than like a lid setting shade or a liner that I have pan on, now that I'm like reflecting on that. So only 2 uses. I feel like there's not a lot of disturbance there. I also reached into this shade one day, and I love this shade. I think this is a really beautiful quad, but we'll see. I feel like it's going to be a little bit before we hit pan on this. And then my sixth and final palette, the palette that I reached for the most, was my ColourPop Low Ray of Sunshine palette, and I randomly generated this shade right here. This is in the shade Chillin', and it is a really beautiful, like, medium. I'm gonna have to swatch it down towards the bottom here. Mid-tone, there it is, swatched right there, like reddish brown sort of shade. Again, you can tell I have a very cohesive color story. I ended up reaching into this palette 6 times, and I'm currently focused on this shade right here as my all over lid setting shade. I'm trying to hit pan on as well, but I did reach for this shade Chillin' a total of 6 times this month. There's like a little bit of wear on this. I don't know how well you'll be able to see. Again, I will post pictures. There's like a little bit of a dip going, but nothing too significant. I do feel like I could use this as a lower lash line liner as well, and maybe have quicker progress on this. I do feel like this will be in for a couple more months as well before I'm able to hit pan on it. I feel like I'm nowhere close to pan on any of the shades that I'm currently working on, but that's okay. Those are the 6 shades and my progress there. I am hoping to do my makeup a few more times, or a little bit more often, more than 11 times. But for 11 times, I'm excited about the use that I have, and I'm just excited to continue to get excited about doing my makeup again. So that is where we're at with our progress. Now it is time for me to share with you guys which palette from my palettes on their last 2 Raw series I'm going to be focused on for this month. Okay, so like I said, I will be rolling out my Nabla Secret palette. I am probably still going to heavily focus on this palette and really try and focus on this shade right here and see if I can't add a pan to this palette. But the palette that I'm going to be rolling in to replace that one is going to be this one from Marc Jacobs. This is the Electric palette, and I actually do already have a pan in this palette. This took me forever to hit pan on. The pans in this palette are actually very, very deep. I don't know how well you'll be able to see like how deep the pan actually is, but these are really, really deep pans. I am hoping that I end up getting either this shade or this shade right here, because I just felt like those would be really beautiful shades for this month, for February, for like Valentine's Day and pinks. I am not going to allow myself to roll in the black shade, obviously, and then I have pan here, so I really only have 5 shades to select from, and honestly I would be not mad at any of the shades if they were to be selected. So I'm going to pull up my Pretty Random app, and we are going to randomly generate a number between 1 and 5, and we get number 2. Oh, I thought that was gonna be a pink one, but it's not. Dang it, it's actually this dark brown shade. I'm not gonna lie, that's probably the shade that I would have wanted the least, but I suppose I could use this as a liner, or I probably even could use this one in my brows and maybe put this one away for a little bit, or at least for the month. So let's see. We'll swatch this one out. I have re-swatched the rest of my shades, and I do still have a very cohesive color story. I need to like do a look using all of the shades. I know a lot of people do that for their Pan Those Eyeshadows series, where they'll do a look using all the shades in that they're actively working on, and I did not do that last month, but I will try and do that for this month. I do feel like this would be really easy for me to use as a brow powder, so I will try and focus on it that way, as well as obviously incorporate it into other looks. And hopefully, I do not think I even have a prayer at hitting a pan on this shade for the next update, but hopefully I can get a lot of use out of this. And I have found so far, I know we're only on month 2, but this has been a good way to kind of incorporate my palettes on their last 2 raw and to get more use out of them. So this is the color story that we will be working on for the month of February. I hope that you guys enjoyed this update. I would love to know, have you yet hit any eyeshadow pans in the year of 2022? Thank you so much for sticking around to watch today's video and for supporting my channel, as you guys always do. I love you guys so much, and I'll catch you in my next video. Bye.